Good morning, I'm Councillor Nikki Brennan and I will be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee C of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can we please ensure that all microphones are muted for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure? Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of the subcommittee members unless you are the person speaking? This is to reduce bandwidth. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phones onto silent and ensure that they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or unnecessary noise? Thank you for that. I am speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It is vitally important for what I hope are obvious reasons that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these type of meetings. I also confirm that this meeting is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Members are reminded that they must declare any relevant pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item, and any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies were submitted on behalf of Councillor Mary Locke, and Councillor Aiken was the nominated substitute member. Can I welcome you to this hearing for a summary review in respect of the licence for Bamboo, First Floor, Cotwall House, Waterley Street, Birmingham, B5 4RT. I will begin with some introductions. My name is Councillor Nikki Brennan and I am chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillor Diane Donaldson.
Good morning, Chair.
And Councillor Alex Aiken.
Good morning.
Also present in this meeting are the following officers. Licensing Officer Bapinder Nangra.
Morning, Chair.
Committee Manager Katie Townshend.
Good morning, Chair.
And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampali.
Good morning, Chair.
Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, West Midlands Police.
Good morning, Chair. Mark Swallow, West Midlands Police.
Thank you. Then Licensing Enforcement, who have also made representation.
Good morning, Shahid Ali, Licensing Enforcement.
And finally, the licence holder and their representative.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody. I'm here with the Director of the Licence Holding Company.
Okay. Could I ask if any persons making representations wish to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing? Thank you. Nobody wishes to withdraw. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that due to the nature of today's hearing, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure you all that any such amendments will not impact on a party's right to a fair hearing. We will be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click the speech bubble to go on to chat. If you do not have access to chat function for any reason, please use the raise your hand function if you wish to speak. This button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all now confirm you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now? Officers will also type their job title. This meeting will not proceed until you all have done so. Please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. With the exception of the subcommittee members, please keep your cameras off unless you are the person speaking. If there are any problems with bandwidth which cause difficulties with the sound, I may at my discretion ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone being able to hear and be heard. Does anybody wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now. Thank you. I will now briefly outline the procedure which will be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case, which we are asking this could be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case. We are asking if this can be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then the licence holder and the representative will be invited to make their case. Again, approximately 20 minutes will be allowed for this part of the hearing. Can I ask that all parties speak as slowly and clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes. And the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time it is somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, they must signify this by using the chat facility set out on the right-hand side of the screen you are viewing this meeting on. The meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which questions are dealt with. So at any point of the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate time. If at any point you cannot hear or are having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they just said. It is important that we use the chat function as soon as you are unable to hear the person speaking. It may be that there is a problem caused by people still having their microphones or cameras on, which creates interference, so I remind everyone to mute their microphones and turn their cameras off when they are not the person speaking. Could I point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice? At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to the meeting and continue. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time the meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream, and once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be made until all the evidence is heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision, and they will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event the members need to clarify any point, you will be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will make their decision. You will be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within the statutory time limit. I hope that is reasonably straightforward. So with that, can I ask the licensing officer to present the report as slowly as clearly as you can, please?
Thank you, Chair. On the 14th of September 2021, Superintendent Fox, on behalf of West Midlands Police, applied for a review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003, as amended by the Violent Crime Reduction Act 2006, of the premises licence granted to Arcadian Wrottesley Entertainment Limited in respect of Bamboo, first floor, Cotwell House, Wrottesley Street, Birmingham, B5 4RT. The purpose of the report is to review the premises license following an application for an expedited review under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003 as amended by the Violent Crime Reduction Act 2006. The application was accompanied by the required certificate, which is attached at Appendix 1. Within 48 hours of receipt of an application made under Section 53A, the licensing authority is required to consider whether it is appropriate to take interim steps pending determination of the review of the premises license. Such a review to be held within 28 days after the day of its receipt, review that license and reach a determination on that review. Licensing Subcommittee C met on the 15th of September 2021 to consider whether to take any interim steps and resolved that the designated premises supervisor be removed and that the premises license be suspended pending a review of the license. A copy of the determination is attached at Appendix 2. The premises license holder was notified of the interim steps taken by the licensing authority and subsequently made representation at 1:18 p.m. on the 29th of September 2021. See Appendix 3. As a result of this representation, the Licensing Subcommittee met on the 1st of October 2021 and again, having heard from representatives of the licence holder and West Midlands Police, resolved that the suspension be lifted and that the conditions of the licence be modified until the determination of the review hearing. A copy of the decision is attached at Appendix 4. The review application was advertised by the licensing authority in accordance with the regulations. The closing date for responsible authorities and other persons ended on the 29th of September 2021. A representation has been received from Birmingham City Council Licensing Enforcement as a responsible authority. See Appendix 5. A copy of the current premises licence is attached at Appendix 6 and the site location plans are attached at Appendix 7. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to modify the conditions of licence, exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, revoke the licence, or to take no action. In addition, the subcommittee will need to decide what action, if any, should be taken regarding the interim steps imposed on the 15th of September 2021 and subsequently modified on the 1st of October 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can the applicant West Midlands Police now make their presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Bamboo Nightclub is located on the first floor of Cotwell House, Wrottesley Street in Birmingham. The postcode is B54RT. It is a nice nightclub which is licensed between 1000 hours and 0400 hours on each day of the week. Premises were open and carrying out licensable activity on the evening of Friday the 10th of September 2021, going into the morning of Saturday the 11th of September 2021. At 02:17 hours, 2 crimes of Section 18 wounded were reported to West Midlands Police, whereby 2 persons received stab wounds, one to his right shoulder and hand and the other to his right hip. A further person was arrested for a fray who was fighting with others at the location. Inquiries into these matters are still ongoing. Officers attempted to enter the premises after being made aware of the first stabbing and were confronted by a large-scale disorder taking place on the staircase. This was so ferocious that officers were forced back outside and persons were then coming out of the premises. One male was able to be arrested from this disorder, although in order to ensure their safety and effect the arrest, officers were forced to deploy incapacitant spray. Inquiries inside the premises revealed a further male with a stab injury to his right hip, This is believed to have happened in a room near to the entrance of the premises. Both males that were injured were taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and had their injuries treated. Neither set of injuries are life-threatening. Inquiries at the scene outside Bamboo have revealed 2 knives and a wallet that had been discarded. These have been recovered by the police and are subject to further examination. There were a number of scenes with large amounts of blood in the premises, and upstairs was an open first aid kit, which appeared to have been used to treat persons with injuries. CCTV system for the premises has been seized by the police. Security from the premises made officers aware of the stabbing incident outside when they became aware of the fact that the male had been stabbed. The designated premises supervisor was identified as Jasdeep Kaur. He was spoken to by officers and stated that he was not present at the premises at the time of the incident. He stated that the premises were being used for a private party, and a list that believed to show the details of the attendees has been seized. This is being looked into by West Midlands Police at this moment. It's noted that as a result of the operating licensing conditions and conditions imposed by Licensing Subcommittee A on the 8th of the 7th, 2019, the premises must risk assess each day's business and events, providing these to West Midlands Police 28 days prior to them occurring. All customers, staff and DJs attending the premises must be searched, and nominated security staff must wear body cams, and the CCTV at that time was to be updated. I have made inquiries into the event that has led to these incidents taking place. I found that the designated premises supervisor had not completed an adequate risk assessment for the event, and had then submitted this to West Midlands Police on the day of the event, which was far too late for any comprehensive checks to be made into the information. This has meant that the birthday party as booked was in fact an event with gang orientated attendance. Due to the appearance of the risk assessment, it would have taken in-depth inquiries to reveal the inadequacies of it. That's led to an inadequate response to the threat posed by the event and allowed the issues that manifested themselves to take place. It's my belief that the DPS either acted out of complicity or out of neglect in the preparation of the risk assessment, and there is no reason to believe that he acted other than alone in that. The search regime has also failed, and knives had been taken into the premises. Since that incident, I've worked with the premises licence holder, Kadir Ahmed, to provide a robust regime whereby these issues would not reoccur. An agreed position has been reached between the premises licence holder and West Midlands Police. As a result, an appeal was made against the interim steps order, and that was held on the 1st of October 2021, where conditions were agreed by the subcommittee allowing the premises to reopen. The agreed conditions are that the licence holder shall maintain and operate an ID scanner to all persons entering the premises whenever licensable activities are being carried on. The premises is to adopt and display a clear notice to the effect that there is a strict policy of no ID, no entry. All persons, including staff, DJs and entertainers, entertaining the premises whenever licensable activities are being carried on will be subject to a search. This search will include a full body search and a metal detection search. Each of those activities is to be undertaken by a separate door supervisor. The licence holder will have available for use a working bleed kit whenever licensable activities are carried out at the premises. No persons would be allowed entry to the premises after 0300 hours, save for re-entry for persons who were on the premises prior to that, and every person re-entering the premises will be strictly subject to the same search as when they entered. The licence holder will consult with West Midlands Police when they intend to vary the DPS on the premises, and similarly to consult with West Midlands Police before changing the company that provides door security. It was further agreed that the authorised hours on the premises would be modified by reducing the terminal hour for licensable activities on a Friday and Saturday for the sale of alcohol to 0400 and for regulated entertainment and late night refreshment to 0430. Additionally, the designated premises supervisor was dismissed and was replaced by a new designated premises supervisor after consultation with West Midlands Police. It is my belief that these conditions provide a double check fail-safe for the issues identified and puts in place whereby the licensing objectives are being promoted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Donaldson.
No, Chair.
Councillor Aiken.
Not at this stage, thank you, Chair.
I've got no questions either. So we'll now move on to licensing enforcement. Could they now make their presentation?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Shahid Ali. Obviously, already introduced myself. I'm a licensing enforcement officer. I first became aware of the issue at Bamboo on the 15th of September 2021, as I was tasked with going to the premises and erecting the review notices. Following this, I cited the police application for the review of the licence. And obviously, in the application, there was a serious incident involving knives and 2 patrons getting stabbed. At the time of the incident, the designated premises supervisor was Mr. Jasdeep Kaur. And he's issued with the personal licence by Birmingham City Council. At the time, West Midlands Police, they says they've spoke to the DPS, Mr. Kaur, and he denied being at the premises when the incident took place. Mr. Kaur has been involved with the premises either as a DPS since 14th of May 2009, where the premises licence was held by Baron Leisure Limited, and then by Leisure Nights Limited, and as the DPS and premises licence holder since the 2nd of April 2014, when the licence was transferred from Leisure Nights Limited to Chinatown Leisure Limited, which is subsequently dissolved on the 26th of the 1st, 2021. Mr. Kaur was the person with significant control of this business. The licence was then transferred to Cotwell 1 Limited. Mr. Kaur was again the person with significant control of this business. And then to Arcadian Wrottesley Entertainment Limited. Mr. Kaur was the person with significant control of the business until the 31st of May 2021. But now it is Mr. Abdul Qadir. The premises licence was previously reviewed on the 8th of July 2019 when Mr. Kaur was the DPS. And following the review of the licence, conditions were modified and some new committee conditions were added. The following conditions were added. Management have taken the decision that all staff and performers, including DJs, will be searched on the front entrance, the same as patrons attending the venue. The security deployment plan will be revisited to take this into account. Take into account of extra security on the entrance for searching. Security deployment and search plan will be in place before Friday, the 21st of June 2019, and a copy of this document will be made available to West Midlands Police. The other condition was the removal of the current designated premises supervisor, who was Mr. Kaur at the time, and that he is replaced by a new DPS. On the 13th of the 8th, 2021, a transfer request to remove Mr. Davis as the DPS from the licence and to replace him with Mr. Kaur was received by licensing. Mr. Davis was removed and Mr. Kaur once again took over the DPS role. Mr. Kaur was the DPS at the premises when the licence was reviewed in 2019, and he was again the DPS when the stabbing incidents took place, and the reason why the review has been called for now. Clearly, the above conditions have not been complied with, because if there was a proper search carried out on the customers and staff, then the knife should not have got through into the premises, and Mr. Cole should not have been the DPS, as the condition asked for his removal. And having removed himself, he has then reinstated himself as the DPS. Obviously, the reasons given for West Midlands Police calling for the review of the premises licence are, in my opinion, fully justified, as they have stated there was no call to the emergency services made by the management or staff of the premises, and the staff who were working at the premises at the time of the incident have not been forthcoming with information when questioned. This shows a serious concern that the management of the premises and those responsible for the day-to-day running of the premises have little regard for the prevention of crime and disorder and for the safety of the public, and are not able to operate the premises in accordance with the conditions of the licence. This is the reason why I've put in my representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Donaldson?
No, Chair.
Councillor Aiken?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, no questions from me either. So thank you for your presentation. And can now we move on to the submissions of the representatives of the Can we now move on to the licence holder and their representatives, please? Mr. Craig.
Good morning again, Chair. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, I'm going to firstly deal. I'm a little surprised at Shahid what he's read out, because he's basically read out his representation verbatim when I've had discussions with him. I know that Mark Swallow's had discussions with him, and Shahid has actually acknowledged that there are inaccuracies within the email that formed the basis for his representation. So I don't know why he's reading out stuff that he has acknowledged to me is incorrect. The position is, as I understand it, and certainly based on the last email I had from Shahid, was that he was content if the police were in agreement to withdraw his representation. So I wouldn't mind some clarity from him when he's summing up as to what his position is, because certainly my understanding his position is that he's content with the agreement that's been arrived at. The oral representations he's just made aren't in accordance with my understanding, and so I would greatly appreciate some clarity from him on that. Position is, I don't know if Councillor Donaldson sat on the 1st of October, but I know Councillor Brennan and Aiken did not. Yeah, we entered into. So I think certainly Councillor Donaldson and Brennan, you were here on the 15th for the interim step of suspension. That was not opposed by the licence holder for reasons I set out, and I identified a number of what I had very clear instructions upon were inaccuracies within the review application. Most importantly of all, that the premises, and Shahid has just read out the fact that premises has not contacted the police. That is wrong. That is plainly wrong. That has been demonstrated to be wrong and acknowledged as such by West Midlands Police by virtue of the CCTV footage. So accordingly, I was able to enter into helpful discussions with West Midlands Police, and most specifically Mark Swallow, who I will state here has been extremely professional and fair throughout this. He obviously wanted to take a step back and consider the representations that I had made, and he's done that in a very thorough and fair way, in my view. And accordingly, we were able to reach agreement around conditions to be imposed as an interim step. They are contained, in fact, within Mark's witness statement that he's provided for the purpose of this hearing, which is contained, I can't see the number on here, annoyingly, but it's the second page of his witness statement. The numbers printed in a part of the report, I can't see what the number is, 34, 33, 31, page 31. So we invited the subcommittee sitting on the 1st of October to impose those as interim conditions. We are further inviting you today to impose them as permanent conditions, and Moreover, to maintain the interim step of those conditions so that thereby they will take effect immediately as of the end of this hearing, so should you be minded to follow that. And then on the basis that the 21-day appeal period expires, the interim step will fall away, and then they will be imposed immediately as a matter of course as conditions on the license. So effectively they'll take effect from now. Just so you're just to go through them, because obviously you didn't have the benefit of hearing what I said on the last occasion. First of all, the ID scanner. Mr. Kadir had actually acquired an ID scanner after the incident and spent £5,500 on that, and that has been operational last weekend. As should have last weekend went and passed off without any incident. There's then a double layer of search requirements. I can confirm that searches were undertaken thoroughly to everyone who entered the premises on that occasion, but clearly that was insufficient. Somebody's got it certainly would appear someone's got a weapon or weapons into the premises, and so we've added a further layer of metal detection. So everyone will be required to be searched twice by two individual operatives. Firstly, a full body search, which wasn't previously provided for, and secondly, metal detection. I would, in respect of that, I would invite. And I should have made this clear, I would invite you to delete the present condition in relation to search, just simply because this is more onerous on the premises, and it would then deal with any confusion about duplication around conditions, which is something we all seek to avoid. Working bleed kit, I can confirm that's at the premises now, and then we've modified the hours so that the sale of alcohol by retailers reduced to 4 a.m, regulated entertainment and late night refreshment reduced to 4:30, and a last entry condition of 3 a.m. And these are all matters that the police requested and my client agreed to. And then lastly, there are two conditions that deal with the fact that the premises need to consult West Midlands Police if they intend to vary the DPS. I would take issue again. Shahid has mentioned about the DPS putting himself on there previously. Well, that's not correct. The process is that a license holder makes an application to vary the DPS. It's only them that can make that application because it is their license, and the DPS needs to consent to that. But I'll just deal with the DPS point, because the DPS, I completely agree, in my professional view, for what it's worth. The DPS did let the premises down, and he has gone and will not be returning. And it's good that that condition is there. I mean, look, for DPS to be varied, the police have oversight of that anyway, but I think it's a helpful exercise for a premises to be required to engage with the police prior to that application going in, because it can save a lot of grief and aggro if those discussions take place, particularly for a premises such as these. We did have some discussions with West Midlands Police around the door company, but it was, I don't think, and Mark can obviously come back on this if he disagrees, but it's self-evident that the way the door company, in broad terms, handled matters that night, and their general repute within the city as such, that isn't being sought, that the door company has changed, but that if that does or is proposed to take place in the future, that again, and again, this is something the premises welcomes, that consultation is required to be taken place. Immediately following, I literally went from this room into the next on the 1st of October and made the DPS variation application, so that as a consequence of the suspension being lifted, that the premises was authorised to carry on the sale of alcohol under the premises license. And so that DPS variation application went in on the 1st of October. And clearly, I think you could take it as read. It's not going to be objected to, given the fact that West Midlands Police are happy with that applicant. They've seen his CV, and so he is the DPS going forward. I should add, Mr. Ahmed, following the suspension, did the associated course in relation to his being a personal license holder. He undertook that course. His DBS has come back, which is clear, and he has applied to Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council for a personal license. I spoke yesterday to Anne Betterson, who is the licensing manager at Solihull. They haven't processed it as such as yet, but it's expected that'll happen at some point next week. It might even happen today, actually. So whilst Mr. Almond is not going to be the DPS and is proposed to be, it's going to carry on as it is. At least there's another personal license holder that's going to be on the premises who understands and has certification in relation to their understanding of the licensing objectives. There are, as there is a requirement for risk assessment, it's acknowledged the risk assessments were deficient. I've got a little bit more involved with that and will do for the next few weeks. I've worked closely with these premises and I intend to do that going forward. Perhaps my practice is a little different from other barristers who perhaps sometimes come in and then move on to other things. And that's not a criticism of them. It's just the way my business model is that I have a lot of regular repeat clients. That's a big part of my practice, and take great pride in trying to help when people have been in situations like this, to try and help them, not just once the hearing is concluded, but to continue, because I guess that's a part and parcel of the service that I provide, and why I like to think I've got a lot of customers that I've retained in the city, because it's important that this process isn't, or this hearing isn't the end of the conclusion of matters, that they can continue to interact and cooperate with responsible authorities. And from the first time I met him, Mr. Ahmed has said that he wants to have a positive relationship with the police, and if nothing else, this process has moved that relationship on, I hope. And certainly I'm going to propose that we have a meeting perhaps in a month's time at the premises with West Midlands Police and me in attendance, just to perhaps have a debrief as to where we are. There is an ongoing criminal investigation, and I just want to reiterate now, as I did say on the 15th of September, that my client was there at pretty much at most material times. He missed the beginning of the initial disorder, but I just want to reiterate, Mark, that he's happy to assist if your colleagues who are investigating the criminal side of this want some assistance from him in terms of the CCTV. If he can perhaps point certain things out, he's more than happy to do that, and has reiterated that to me this morning. I should add as well that all the staff are booked on a first aid course at the premises on the 27th. That is being undertaken by Siren Training Limited. And so again, that's another example. This, notwithstanding my comments about the representation of the licensing authority, which I hope is going to be clarified by Shahid, this is a good example, in my view, of a premises acknowledging that they've made some mistakes and there have been some shortcomings, and taking positive steps to address that. My client's under no illusions that he absolutely needs to ensure that these conditions are rigidly adhered to going forward. And I've got no doubt in my mind that he'll do everything to ensure that happens. He's invested a lot of personal money into this premises. He acquired it in was it May or June? May. Actually disposed of a property in order to be able to purchase it, and so he's got a lot on the line personally, and wants to ensure that he's got a viable business. And a viable business isn't just in relation to what you take through the till; it's to ensure that you operate it in a lawful manner, so that you've got a licensed business that is not under any form of threat going forward. And so I've got no doubt he will do everything he can to protect his investment and make sure that people operate in the premises, people enter the premises in a way, into an environment that's safe. He has asked me, he wants to say a few words. I'm normally slightly reticent with clients that ask that, because that doesn't always end as you want it to. But he is a in my view, an articulate individual and someone I think who presents himself well. So I've said that's fine. I think Councillor Brennan, on the last occasion, you had one or two questions, understandably, about his managerial experience, and I don't think I did him justice actually on that occasion, because whilst he hasn't run,
Mr. Craig,
Yes?
it was to do with the previous DPS's experience in my memory, not
Was
the.
it?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay, noted. Just to say he has, thank you. Just to say he has, whilst he never actually ran a licensed premise, he's been very closely involved with the operation of them in his role as a door supervisor, clubs in Mayfair, and so he's not coming into this without a considerable amount of experience about late night venues such as this. And obviously, I only noticed just before the hearing, I did send his CV in. But that isn't in. I don't think that's in the agenda pack. I don't know if you've had sight of that at all. No, that was in. That was in for the previous interim steps hearing. Normally they sort of get added on at the end. But look, he could just say a few words about his experience. So I'm going to turn the camera around now, and then I'll finish off. How are we doing for time, Councillor Brennan? We all right? All right. I've not got much more to say. Don't worry.
You're just on schedule.
Great. Thank you. I'll just turn the camera around now.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to say a few words. I don't know if you'll deem them pertinent or not, but nevertheless, I appreciate it. What I wish to construe to the committee is essentially the standing of Bamboo as a venue, institution in the context of Birmingham community and wider. Bamboo Nightclub opened nearly 20 years ago and has been a mainstay and at the forefront of the city's hospitality scene. And I can only say how privileged and proud I was to be having given the opportunity to acquire it recently, especially at such a precarious time for us all, and more so the hospitality industry as a whole. As you're aware, has really taken the brunt end of this pandemic. I'm glad I was able to help at a time when so many in the industry have been unable to reopen their doors due to no fault of their own. I generally consider the venue itself as a name to be something that genuinely adds value to the city's nightlife industry. I myself have had the privilege of working in our capital's hospitality industry and can honestly say that over the years, whenever going for a night out in Birmingham was discussed in London, the name Bamboo was never far to be mentioned. I understand from other accounts that this applies up north and around parts of the country too. I do believe long-standing establishments like these need to be protected and working together with responsible authorities to ensure safer environments for people to enjoy. This only strengthens our city's brand, and I'm glad to be part of this effort, especially with prestigious events like Commonwealth Games soon to be with us. However, with that being said, I totally understand that what comes first and what is paramount. It is the safety of all who come and enjoy our venues. The duty of care lies upon us to make sure everyone has a trouble-free night and makes it back home with nothing but good words to say and joyful memories. As you know, we have sought advice of industry professionals and have rang some changes, so to speak. It has been admittedly a learning experience, and I'm glad especially to have opened up a working relationship with Duncan, whose guidance, advice and experience will prove invaluable moving forward to us, as it already has been. Lastly, without taking too much of your time, I'd like to say how serious I take my role as an employer and to what is being between 80 to 100 staff and contractors weekly. We employ students trying to cover fees and living costs to parents who help with their own expenses and everything in between. I just want to give this on record, as after the 18 odd months we've all collectively had, it has not been easy to say I've been grateful that I've had this chance to help. Apologies if this came across very formal. It's just, I'm not the greatest first in public speaking, and thank you for listening.
Could you just tell me about your background a little bit briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually worked at the club myself as a security operative since from 2005 2012. So I've been in the nightclub and licensed premises industry for over 15, 16 years. I've been head of security in Mayfair, London. So I've got a lot of wealth of experience dealing with customers, police, dealing with situations. Yeah.
Cool. I'll just there we go. Okay. Just really to finish up because I'm sure we've descended beyond the 20 minutes now, I expect. So apologies if we have. Just to state really, police are your main source of advice to crime disorder. We've reached agreement there with West Midlands Police, and I believe licensing as well. But I'll obviously wait to get confirmation of that. And just to say that what happened, it was a highly regrettable and unfortunate and serious incident. Premises has acknowledged that from the outset and has worked hand in hand with the police in particular to find a way forward. These conditions now provide a further layer of protection. You have an agreed position between West Midlands Police and the licence holder. I will just reiterate that I will work with the premises in particular over the next few weeks to ensure that I do my job to ensure they've got a viable business and a successful business going forward. And included in that is absolutely the promotion of the licensing objectives. And so for those reasons, I would invite you to impose those conditions as interim steps. There's no need to do anything in relation to the DPS now, and impose those both as interim steps now and as conditions on the licence going forward, so that they will take effect immediately. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll now go to questions from members. So, Councillor Donaldson, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Aiken, do you have any questions?
I don't, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. So my first question is about the ID scanner.
Yes.
Is that all patrons that come in?
Yes.
So every single person that comes in?
Yes. So whenever licensable activities are being carried on, had this discussion with Mark. So if, for example, someone's got to come in the day and do some bottling up, that's not required because the premises isn't selling alcohol at that stage. But as soon as it commences the sale of alcohol or regulated entertainment, then everyone will be required. That includes entertainers as well. Everyone will be required to present their ID, and it needs to be a verifiable form of ID, i.e. passport or driving licence. So the answer to your question, Councillor Brennan, is yes.
Okay, and then my other question is, do you have the same search process for both male and female customers?
It's probably best. You want to?
Yeah.
Yes, other than we do have separate, that you always have a female, at least one.
A female.
We'll have a female operative, yes.
Okay, and then there's a question that's been put in by Shahid in the chat, which I'll just read. It says, Duncan has stated CCTV provided emergency services were called. How is this proved by CCTV? Are there logs recorded which prove the emergency services were called?
The CCTV. So as I said at the hearing on the 15th, there were 2 individuals who suffered wounds. The first of those was talking on the stairs to the head doorman and the deputy head doorman, in fact, because he'd been part of the incident. And had his shirt on and was unaware he'd been wounded, as was anybody else talking to him. It's not an uncommon phenomenon, actually, when people have been cut, that they don't realise it at the time. He left the premises and took his shirt off, actually, on the street. And immediately upon taking his shirt off, the head doorman, in fact, it wasn't the head doorman, it was the female doorman, spotted that he'd been wounded. And immediately following that, the head doorman then went over to the police who were actually on the street at the time and informed them of what had happened, and then they dealt with the matter immediately. So not been suggested that the premises rang the police, and in fact I said at the last hearing, or not the last hearing, the hearing on the 15th, there's absolutely no need for them to do that. In fact, to ring the police would have been absurd, given that they've immediately notified the police of the incident, and that is all captured on CCTV and has been confirmed to be as such by Mark. Mark, I don't know if you want to just confirm that, please. Mark, sorry, here we go.
Yes, Councillor, obviously that was an issue that came up at the initial hearing, so I did look into that specifically myself. I have seen the CCTV, and as was said by Mr. Craig there, this person came out of the premises, he went left into Wrottesley Street towards the dead end. He's then removed his shirt, at which point staff there have become aware of the fact that he's been stabbed, and then the staff went off to the right down towards Ladywell Walk, where they brought back some officers who have then started to look into the incident and obviously treat the injured person. So yes, I can confirm that's a correct account from my viewing of the CCTV.
I would just add, since the question was asked by Shade, I'm pretty sure I did say all this to Shade when we had a telephone conversation last week. I'm almost certain of that. But anyway, look, there we go. That's the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to those making representations to make a closing submission. So we'll go to Licence and Enforcement for their closing submission.
Thank you, Chair. I've obviously heard Duncan's proposals, and it appears that the police, Mark, is quite happy with the extra conditions and the proposals in regards to the ID scanners, the extra searches, and that all persons will be subject to a search. As the police are obviously the lead authority or the experts on the crime and disorder issues, if the police are happy for these extra conditions to be attached to the licence permanently rather than an interim step, then I would be quite happy to withdraw my representation.
Okay, thank you. We'll now go to West Midlands Police to make a closing statement.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, this was a terrible incident. 2 people were stabbed as a result of it. I'd like to thank the committee for the prohibited steps order initially that allowed us to go away, have a look at what had gone on, and to be able to have a more rounded view as to the circumstances and how to remedy those. I'd also like to thank the committee for the interim steps order. That was an opportunity for the premises to prove that it can work within these new set of rules, which are quite an onerous set of rules, and work within them successfully. I can confirm that the premises have reopened and there have been no issues with it being reopening. I can also confirm that the investigation is ongoing into the assaults and the affray. Obviously, you can appreciate that it's quite a complex investigation with a number of things occurring, and so that is still ongoing, but I can confirm that that is the case. I believe that the conditions that have been put forward by the applicant and West Midlands Police are both proportionate and targeted. The premises licence holder has acknowledged that there were some issues that were taking place with the premises, and he's acknowledged that he would now take greater control of what's occurring at the premises. I believe that the measures will prevent any further issues that are from occurring, as has happened in this case, and promote the licensing objectives. I can say that West Midlands Police do have no objection to the new designated premises supervisor who has been nominated. I can also say that the conditions regarding new premises supervisors potentially in the future, and in relation to the door company, which again West Midlands Police have no issues with, are there as safeguards to prevent the situation has been alluded to, whereby the previous designated premises supervisor came back to the premises. This would not be able to reoccur in the future due to the conditions that are being put in place. Also, the other conditions that are being put in place operate as a double fail-safe to prevent people getting in with knives for identifications to be checked, so that ties up with the risk assessment, and that it can't be infiltrated by people that you wouldn't want into the nightclub. I therefore believe that this agreed position is a good way of moving forward, and would invite the subcommittee to extend that into a permanent order. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Finally, does the licence holder and their representative wish to make their closing submission, please?
Yeah, thank you. Not a lot to say, really. Thank you, Mark. You've been very fair, and we have an agreed position here. And thank you, Shahid, for clarifying your position. And so just invite you, as I've said, to impose those conditions, both as, or maintain them as an interim step, and impose them permanently on the licence. And as I say, I'll look to have a meeting with West Midlands Police in a month or so's time at the premises, just to have a debrief. And my client is more than aware. I am always at the end of the phone if he needs to call me at any point and discuss anything. And he's not shy of doing that as well, which is obviously to be encouraged. And so, yes, we would just invite you to follow that path. And that's it, really. That's all I will say.
Thank you. I will now ask all parties to leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session, and the subcommittee will make its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee at the end of the statutory time limit. So thank you, and thank you for everyone's time today. Can we end the live stream, please?